It is not the one who has many things who is rich, but the one who needs few. Now tell me, what would Plato think of capitalism, the system that turns desires into needs and needs into debt? Have you ever stopped to think about it? You clicked on this video because something inside you screamed, "This is gonna hit hard." And it will, because today we're taking this titan of Western thought, Plato, and putting him face to face with the system that rules the modern world. Fair warning, the answer is brutal. Don't expect sugarcoating. We're going to rip off the masks, look in the mirror, and find out what this philosopher would say about how we live, consume, work, and relate. Because if there's one thing Plato didn't do, it was sweep things under the rug. And when we look at capitalism through his eyes, the shock is unavoidable. Plato believed the human soul had three parts: reason, spirit, and desire. Reason should lead, spirit gives courage, and desire needs to be tamed. Now think about it. What does capitalism do? It takes desire, the most instinctive, ravenous part of the soul, and puts it on the throne. It says, want it, buy it, crave it, you deserve it. Worked hard, spend it. It's like the charioteer got thrown out of the chariot, and the wild horse is steering everything. In the allegory of the cave, Plato describes people chained, watching shadows on a wall, thinking that's reality. Swap those shadows for shop windows, ads, likes, and social status. There's capitalism. Selling illusion as truth. It doesn't say, find the truth. It says, buy what feels true. And so we live in this theater of shadows, calling freedom what's often just distraction. The problem isn't money. Plato wasn't naive. He knew a city needs order, and that includes trade, commerce, social roles. But for him, the ideal was a ruling class guided by reason, not greed. The philosopher king didn't rule to get rich. He ruled to harmonize. And if you think that's utopian, maybe you've already settled too much for the world as it is. The soul of the city was a reflection of the souls of its citizens. If every individual was driven by unchecked desire, the city would fall into what Plato called timocracy, where value lies in honor and status, and later, oligarchy, where money rules. Look around, isn't that exactly what we've got? The modern hero isn't the wise or the just. It's the billionaire, the influencer. Plato saw justice as each part of the soul and city doing its role in balance. But in capitalism, the measure is different. Here, justice has become synonymous with fair profit. And balance? Hard to find when a CEO earns in a month what a worker would need 300 years to make. That's not balance, it's a monumental distortion. And there's more. For Plato, education was the path to free the soul from illusions. But modern capitalism treats education as an investment. How much will I earn with this degree? Which course gives the best return? Knowledge has become a commodity, and learning a springboard to the market, not to truth. The irony? Plato knew most people would choose to stay in the cave, because leaving it hurts, and capitalism knows this too. That's why it offers comfort, convenience, entertainment, anything to keep you from looking at the light, and those who try to show the truth often become a joke or a threat. Now look at how we live. We trade time for money, relationships for connections, wisdom for information. Would Plato see this as progress, or just a fancier form of slavery? Because for him, true freedom was living in line with the soul's highest essence. And there's nothing high about chasing the next bill. Perhaps the most brutal part of Plato's critique of capitalism is this. It feeds the soul's lowest parts. It glorifies desire, consumption, excess. And it scorns silence, self-control, contemplation. It turns citizens into consumers, and the ideal life into a storefront. And what's crueler? We get used to it, start thinking it's normal. We cheer for those who hoard, mock those who seek meaning, and then the cave becomes cozy. The problem is, inside it, the soul starts to wither. Plato wouldn't say capitalism is just wrong. He'd say it's a shadow, a crude imitation of true order, a distorted reflection of what life could be. It's not just about economics. It's about what we're becoming, and that answer is brutal. To understand what Plato would really think of capitalism, we need to go back to his idea of the common good. In his work, The Republic, he makes it clear: the focus of society should be justice, not profit. And justice, for him, was when everyone fulfilled their role without stepping on others' toes. Now imagine him seeing a system where the role of many is to enrich a few, where those who produce the most have the least. That's not justice. That's dysfunction baked into the system. In Plato's ideal city, philosophers ruled, not because they knew everything, but because they sought truth above self-interest. Now look at what we've got. Politicians who turn into businessmen. Businessmen who wield more power than politicians. Everything revolves around financial clout. Instead of pursuing the good, it's all about chasing returns. Plato saw the soul as something that should rise toward the world of ideas, a place of perfection, where everything was eternal, pure, true. But capitalism drags the soul downward to the land of more stuff, more status, more money. And the more you have, the more you want. It's a hunger that never satisfies, a wheel that never stops. And in the middle of it, the soul screams, but no one listens. Here's the curious thing. Plato thought most people were easily deceived. That's why he believed in an education that sets you free. But capitalism creates an education that traps. It teaches you to compete, not to think, to follow orders, not to question, to play by the rules of a game, but not to ask who made the game and why. If you told Plato that one day we live in a system where the richest get even richer while the poor struggle to survive, he wouldn't be shocked. He'd call it oligarchy, the rule of the wealthy few. And worse, he'd say the next stage is a corrupted democracy, and then tyranny. Feel that too? That bitter taste of being one step away from chaos? The truth is, Plato distrusted democracy because he thought an uneducated populace would end up choosing leaders who promise big and deliver little. And capitalism, with its propaganda dressed up as freedom, sells unattainable dreams. Then, when it all falls apart, the blame lands on the individual, not the system. How many times have you felt guilty for not being productive enough? For not achieving everything they said you should want? Well, Plato would see that as a form of mental slavery, an invisible prison where the jailer is your own mind, fueled by endless desires. And here's what's most dangerous. Capitalism seems to work. It delivers results, sparks innovation, brings comfort. But Plato would remind us, not everything that works is good. Not everything that grows is healthy. Even cancer grows. The question is, where is this growth taking the human soul? If Plato came back today, he wouldn't be obsessed with technology, markets, or GDP. He'd ask, are people more just, wiser, happier? And I think he'd fall silent hearing the answer, a heavy silence. A silence that says it all. For him, the city should be an extension of the soul, and what we have today is a city reflecting anxiety, haste, selfishness, and competition, a giant mirror of our inner confusion, and no one seems willing to break that mirror, because the fear of emptiness outweighs the hunger for truth. Plato believed true love was love for the good, a love he called philosophical eros, desire not for bodies but for ideas, for virtue. But capitalism hijacked love, turned it into marketing, into a product, an algorithm, and the soul, instead of rising, sinks a little deeper with every click. If the ideal life was one guided by reason, then the capitalist life is its caricature, a life where desire calls the shots, spirit grows weary, and reason gets fired. Plato warned us, but we chose the glow of storefronts over the light of the sun. And now, maybe it's too late to leave the cave. Or maybe not. That's something only you can answer. I thought for 4 seconds. Capitalism insists on making us believe we're free. But Plato would remind us that true freedom comes when we understand our real needs. Have you ever wondered how many of those needs are imposed by ads, labels, or empty comparisons? The soul gets torn between I want and I need, and in that conflict we lose sight of what's essential. When Plato talked about virtue, he meant balance, courage, moderation, justice, and wisdom working together. In capitalism, we see courage exalted, risk everything. But moderation, hardly. People go into debt believing the next purchase will bring happiness. And justice? It's become just another marketing term. Remember that image of a boat without a rudder? Well, capitalism often pushes society with no direction. The economy grows, but the human heart shrinks. And Plato would ask, growth for what? To sustain inequalities that erode the social fabric? The rhetoric of progress hides the emptiness gnawing at us from within. For Plato, politics only makes sense when it leads to virtue. But how many campaigns today are bankrolled by private interests? Votes become commodities, and hope an illusion. The philosopher would say that in this scenario, democracy drifts from justice and turns into a competition of interests serving only a few. Have you noticed how consumption shapes our relationships? People value those who wear certain brands, who hang out in specific places. Plato understood the power of symbols: the sword for the warrior, the crown for the king. In the capitalist world, the brand is the crown, and status the scepter. And the poor soul gets lost trying to serve these fake symbols. The system convinces us that success is measured in dollars. Plato, on the other hand, said true wealth is the health of the soul. He'd probably be baffled seeing so many people riddled with anxiety, working tirelessly to buy things they might not even use. In the end, all that's left is debt and frustration. Deep down, Plato believed in the power of true friendship, the kind that discusses ideas, values, not bank balances. But how often do we see meetups driven by business opportunities, by networking? Friendship loses depth when the measure of worth becomes, who can help me get ahead in life? And leisure? For Plato, free time should be for reflection, contemplating higher ideas. In capitalism, leisure has turned into plug-and-play entertainment, binge-watching shows, social media, impulse buys. Any attempt at inner silence is instantly drowned out by notifications. Even information consumption has become a commodity. News needs to seduce, to generate clicks. Plato spoke of dialectic, dialogue that leads to truth. Today, we settle for sensationalist headlines, abandoning deep debate to save time. But that saving costs us the essence of thinking. When Plato thought of education, he dreamed of a process that sparked a passion for knowledge. In capitalism, education has become a means to an end. A diploma, a paycheck. The classroom turns into a competitive marketplace, and the student forgets the joy of learning for the sake of knowledge. The soul dries up, barren. We've reached a point where the individual, saturated by the system, faces a crisis of meaning. Plato would offer a way out. Look inward. Recognize that the soul needs silence, reading, reflection. It's not easy to face this journey alone, because the system does everything to keep you busy. In the end, Plato might say that capitalism isn't an irreversible heresy, but a challenge inviting us to remember what truly matters. If we decide that the soul is worth more than the bank account, we can redirect our steps. And then, who knows, desire might be guided by reason, not the endless chatter of the market.